flavor for your ear. Epic Spotlight. Putting the spotlight on positive goings on the real people that have chosen a real path. The who's, the whys, and the hows.
And we're back, and we got another one. But before we get going, we're going to take care of some housekeeping notes. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, investing, or refinancing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now on with the show. Today we have Matt Sutika, is an accomplished entrepreneur and CEO at Nimble, a leading multifamily insurance company based in Sarasota, Florida. With a proven track record of success in the insurance sector, Matt has been recognized for his innovative approach and commitment to excellence. Prior to founding Nimble, Matt distinguished himself as the #1 ranked State Farm agent nationwide, showcasing his expertise and leadership in the field. His entrepreneurial spirit led him to establish Nimble, where he continues to drive growth and innovation in the industry. Outside of his professional pursuits, Matt is a dedicated philanthropist, actively supporting innovative, focused on education and community development. In his leisure time, he enjoys exploring Sarasota's vibrant cultural scene and engaging in outdoor activities such as hiking and sailing. With a passion for entrepreneurship and a vision for a future of insurance, Matt Sutika remains a dynamic force in both the business world and his local community. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me. That was quite the bio. Am I right?
Hey, you're doing some great stuff out there. So
My wife got the sailing one in there, you know.
Well, no, that's pretty neat. Obviously, the weather's probably better down there in Florida for sailing right now, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we didn't get to do much sailing in Chicago when we were there for our prior life.
No, I understand. So what are some of the visions and goals for Nimble in the next upcoming years?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. It's one of our visions, was to just continue our efforts that we had from our previous brokerage, but really our next step is to start to create our own internal programs, carriers, to help our clients get rates faster, be more nimble, more white glove with our customer service, where we control more from, I call it, soup to nuts, as far as that process. And really, we're just wanting to build one of the largest, niche multifamily rental insurance brokerages in the country.
No, that's awesome. And then, obviously being in Florida, we talked about hurricanes. I mean, just in some of the issues down there, how do you kind of work? I mean, obviously those are conversations you have with your lenders, but how does it kind of go down there to get insurance?
It's tough. Right now, the hurricane areas, most specifically Florida, is incredibly tough to get insurance. So I think what you have to do is be very creative right now. You have to kind of work both sides for your client. The first side is working with carriers you have to work with who will even offer, an available quote, and then being able to talk to someone on your end on the lending side with their insurance requirements and get them to understand, like, hey, here's what we have to offer. We have this rate with this deductible at this price, or we have this, structure at this deductible. And a lot of times it's coming down to Florida with these hurricane deductibles and the pricing of insurance, where you have to make some business decisions, right? On the lending and the client side, where it's like, hey, I might not be able to get full $10 million limits for wind coverage. I might have to settle for 5 because the cost for insurance for 10 million will break my P&L, right? I'll have great insurance, but I still have a ownership in my my rental anymore because I can't afford. There's no cash for it. So a lot of that is right now is really being able to be dynamic enough to talk both sides. Kind of like Rosetta Stone, if you will. So you're having one conversation with the client, being able to explain the insurance and what's going on, in the market, then talk to the lender and explain what's going on with the insurance, and then ultimately blend those together.
No, definitely. Obviously, we can relate to that. Obviously, being a regional mortgage broker, we have to deal with multiple lenders, multiple banks, as well as dealing with our clients as well. And they're asking questions like, well, how come, and the whys? And, how big is Nimble at this point in time?
So we are in 42 states. So mostly, where people are buying, right? Where kind of the states we're not in, it's like Alaska, Hawaii. I mean, maybe people are buying out there. I just, don't have clients.
Sure.
We've been in the space, all together, me and my team, since about 2010, specifically doing multifamily and real estate and insurance. The exact number of clients,
Or
frankly, I
how
don't
many
know that
agents?
number.
How many agents?
Oh, we have there's 11 of us at Nimble, 11 including myself.
Oh,
So
nice.
we run a pretty tight shop for the volume and everything that we do, but a lot of that is because we have a real estate background ourselves. A lot of us are GP LPs in the real estate space. We are a lot more efficient when it comes to the insurance because we can just get to the point quicker on deals. We can obtain quotes faster, and we really have a relationship with our clients that we're not doing a lot of shopping or competing with 17 other brokerages. Most of our clients are bringing us on to just go get the quotes, get it done, and be a partner. So that allows us to be more nimble, more quicker, and more efficient with our team, which is nice.
Just like the name.
Just like that. And that's where the name came from is my I think I remember from my wife or Nick, who works for me, we were trying to name it. And I was like, what, is there something I say a lot? They're like, you say the word nimble 5 billion times a day, like just name it that. And at first I was like, I don't really like that. Right. And then I went to GoDaddy and saw what was available, right? Like you always do when you're trying to name something.
Sure.
You got to go see if you can get a website, right? And it just kind of stuck from there. And then it started to make sense.
No, definitely. Now, is there one property versus the other that might be a little bit more higher risk or greater risk? I mean, if I'm thinking multi-unit buildings versus a high-rise condo per se, I mean, so what would you say in your expertise?
Outside of location, like location being equal, I think that your biggest risk from, let's say, fire is your older buildings, your older wiring. Of course, that's kind of a no-brainer. And then, of course, when you're looking at, name, storm, wind, hail, of course, anything with wind, the higher the building's going to have more risk, right? And from a liability side, the taller the building is going to have more risk because if you have a fire or you have anything going on and people have to get out, there's the risk of, people getting trapped in and everything like that. So your biggest risk when it comes to buildings, and it's the same thing across the board. This is what carriers look at: number of stories, age built, and wiring. Those are some of the three biggest things that can really affect whether you're getting a decent rate, a really tough rate, or maybe, even, scratching to get a rate on your insurance.
Oh, got it. And then as far as Nimbles goes, what are some of the biggest challenges, besides obviously just the multiple states that you're in, the different weather patterns that are going on? What are some of your challenges as far as growing and scaling up?
So I think our biggest challenge is getting a good conversation with our client for them to really understand what's happening, right now in the space. And the reason I bring that up is insurance has collided into a rough couple of years, right? But so has the lending industry and the GP industry, right, so to speak. And so you got all these people with interest only loans that were coming due, people trying to refi. Property values not going crazy COVID times anymore, right? And so insurance gets mixed into that. And those conversations have been really the toughest from a standpoint of like, what's our biggest challenge is getting people to understand that insurance can no longer just be something that you take lightly. It needs to be something that you are finding properties based off of where insurance is actually good, not going to find a property and then hoping the insurance works out for you. You need to really, really concentrate on it because it can make or break your refi or your deal. So you really need to have your insurance person, instead of being just like a lot of people will think of us maybe sometimes as a commodity or, or just a vendor. You really got to almost put the insurance person right now up to one of the top of the list of when you're going to do anything, buy a property, sell a property, refi a property, whatever, call your insurance broker first and say, like, what does this look like? Like if I told you I'm going to sell or refi. And then, really the biggest challenge from a growth standpoint or acquisitions and clients is, we're relatively, we don't do a lot of outward marketing. We don't do a lot of, events or, cold calls or anything like that. So I think our biggest challenge is, what we love is that we're basically referral only, but that our biggest challenge in growth is How do you, put a rocket behind the referrals, right? So coming on podcasts like this today, meeting good people like yourself and continuing that network is what we're trying to do. And so that's our challenge, but also, what we're trying to hit head on.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and it really makes a lot of sense to me because I'm thinking of obviously I work with investors, and cash flow is the name of the game. Especially if we're looking at the Burr method and all that stuff. And now we really do have to look at the insurance portion of it because you quickly just want to say, oh, it'll be like $100, and it's like, no, it's not. Depending on the area.
Yep.
And obviously, you want to take advantage. I'm thinking of like Houston, Texas. I'm thinking of, obviously in Florida, Miami, Orlando, some of these sites that, are just going to bring in higher amounts as far as premium goes. And it affects the cash flow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And it could really hurt proceeds, everything, right? If you don't get it right. And realistically, you'll hear me say it 100 million times, if you talk to me every day, is that if insurance is used correctly as a tool and not a line item, you can avoid a lot of this. You can avoid properties. You can avoid, making certain decisions that you make with the property. You can do different things. But if you always use it as a secondary or, just, hey, I'm going to just go try to save money, or it's just, I'll do the insurance down the road, or I'll get it before closing. You're not in that market. It's not 2018, 2019, 2020 anymore, where I swear I could go quote things 3 days before closing and be fine for people, right? Like, we have to really plan. We have to really talk about it, and we have to be strategic and make some business decisions that we didn't have to make a few yeyears ago. Now I do think rates will. Oh, good.
Well, you also have to kind of know what's in your policy, right?
Yep. Absolutely. And what's in your policy, and compared to what do you need to meet lender requirements? What do you need to actually protect yourself as a GP, or, for your investor group, or however you're set up, purchasing the asset? Like, what does it really mean? The simplest thing is a lot of people just don't really know the business decision around like a deductible, right? Like, I got a $10,000 deductible. Okay. What does that mean? What are you going to have to do? And how does that affect you when you use that deductible by having a covered loss? Like, what is that? When are you going to have to shell out the money? How are you going to have to shell out the money? Do you have the money? And then how is that going to affect your future policies? Does it make sense to turn in a $15,000 claim on a $10,000 deductible where you're going to pay 10, the insurance carrier is going to pay 5, and then maybe your insurance goes up $5K at renewal or $10K at renewal? Your net to your property, which really matters. Yeah, you got a covered loss and you got it covered, but now your net to your property is a -5 in that situation, right? So you didn't, as an operator, use insurance correctly, right? You used it as a maintenance policy or just a policy that I'm here to use no matter what. And you're not really just breaking it down and saying, hey, this is part of my tools for my property, no different than anything else in the P&L that I'm looking at. Whether I decide to do some renovations to increase revenue coming in from rents, you want to look at it the same way, the cause and effect. If I'm going to put a policy in place, if I'm going to do a claim, what does that mean for my P&L? What does that mean for my future P&L? And that's really what, clearly we would help with. But any good broker, that's what they're going to help advise you on. They're going to give you that advice as much as they can, as much as they know. There's no crystal ball sometimes, but they can really help out and guide you, in the right direction.
Oh, that's a great answer. And then as far as, your crystal ball, like, what is some of the technology that's being used nowadays to kind of decipher between, just policies? What methods are you using to kind of determine, obviously, what I would need or what would be best suitable for me?
Yeah. So the technology, hopefully there's more coming in this space, but we are seeing more and more carriers that we can do what I call more instant or same day rates. So that helps from an estimation standpoint before you go under contract. Speed is always a weapon, if used correctly, right? And then the other technology, to use is we're starting to see carriers. We have this new carrier that's called Certus, and they're taking the method. You probably saw this in the auto space, right? Where these people start putting these devices in their cars and their vehicles, and it tracked whether how fast they used the brake pedal, if they were speeding, all these things. And you would get discounts at Allstate or State Farm or any of these carriers due to how you drive, right? So this is some of the technology that I think is going to start coming into the space, and I'm starting to see it, is where insurance companies are going to start to use property management technology. There's all these different software platforms out there that a lot of people are using anyways, right? Especially if you're using like a big property management company, like an asset living, right, is a great one. So if you're using them, you're going to use this technology. They're tapping into that and they're seeing how you are as an operator, how your property's running, how you're doing maintenance, and they're going to start giving you better rates than the person off the street, because they can start to collect that data, right? And so I think that's going to be really helpful for the good operators and the people who really do the right things with their insurance. Is carriers are going to start to reward that. Other than that, right now, the apartment you own and the apartment I own, right? And I'm a terrible operator. You're a great operator, right? You if a tree branch falls on your driveway, you're picking it up yourself. I'm letting it pile up and causing issues, right? But when our brokers submit our apartment complexes in right now to a carrier, it's the same 1980 build, 2-story, 6 building apartment complex. They're getting the same rate. You should get a better rate, right? Because you're helping mitigate risk better than I do as an operator. So I think that's the technology that's coming to the space, and it's already came to the space a little bit with some of these carriers, is that they're going to start to watch the property after they're on it, right? And actually look what's going on with it and assess. And property management companies, that's what they do, right? Like they're already assessing the property on a daily, monthly basis of, what's the tenants, who are the tenants, how are they coming in, what's the backgrounds, maintenance issues, everything like that. So it won't just be what it is right now is, do you have claims or do you not? That's really the only thing, like, right? Like that determines if someone's really good, but claims are, 90% of the time not avoidable. Right. So,
Sure.
So I think that's the biggest technology piece that I'm excited about, is that if I have good clients who are good operators, hopefully they're going to get some better rates than just the standard market by some of these tools coming into the space.
So obviously more flexibility and more options is always a good thing for a consumer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then finally, obviously, and you kind of already referenced it with the whole, even concept of your name, Nimble. How are you differentiating yourself out here compared to other insurance companies? What are you doing out in the space that really, separates you?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I will always mention response rate, right? I think it is it's very simple, but I think it's key. If you talk to a lot of people in the space, the most number one complaint I hear is, I haven't heard back from my broker, right? So we just take that right off the map. We try as much as we can, right? I'm sure there's someone listening right now. One of my clients is like, he didn't respond to me for 6 hours one time, but for the most part, we try to be responsive, even if we don't, have the correct answer yet, of just, acknowledging. So that's first and foremost. The next piece where we really differentiate ourselves beyond that is capacity, right? It's a capacity game in this space, meaning more carriers, new carriers, unique carriers, and understanding of the carriers, right? And the way we look at it at Nimble is that majority of our competition, or our peers in the space, they get kind of set on X amount of carriers and wholesalers that they work with, and they just same old Groundhog's Day, do the same thing. I probably spend 30% of my time, Sarah, who, works for us, she's spending maybe more than that. We're constantly trying to go state by state, from Google searches to you name it, and find more capacity for our clients. If I can find one more carrier in Texas that some other broker doesn't have, that's one more ability for my clients to have a different rate. So we really, really spend a lot of time on trying to make sure that we have more capacity for our clients, because that's the name of the game in insurance. Insurance is risk management and capacity of that risk management, right? That's all carriers are, right? How much risk do they want to take? And then do they still have some more risk to take, right? So if you mitigate, like we talked about with some of the technology and some of the other things on the front end for the actual risk, some of it you can't control, like location, age of building, all that stuff outside of what you buy. And then the next piece is, do I constantly fill the funnel so that I have 8, 10, 12, 15 carriers looking at each property that I bring from my clients, compared to 2 or 3, because just the law of numbers that, 99 out of 100 or whatever made up stat I can make right now, right, is that if you have 12 people looking at a property compared to 3, you're more likely to get a better rate than, being on the smaller end of that. It's just math. I didn't major in math, but I'm pretty sure that it works out that way.
I agree. No, and then one thing about insurance is, and you kind of touched on it, and I just want to get this clear. There's a lot of consumers nowadays going online to get insurance, kind of just winging it themselves. I still feel like they should have an agent, right? Because you have expertise in the space. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, really, I love the online carriers, right? I think that they serve a purpose. I think more in the home and auto space a little bit. I think there's a little bit more forgiving, but in the business space or the rental space, there's not really too much of an extra cost for you to get that extra advice. And you're worried more about a P&L on the rental side. You're worried about taking care of your investors and things like that. So for me, I think it makes a lot more sense to have that broker who probably has all those online markets anyways, or equivalent carriers and pricing. Brokers are getting paid by the carrier. So it's not like, hey, oh man, I got to pay more to go over to this guy or gal to work with them. You really want that expertise when it's on the business side. Your home and auto, I'll still argue. I don't play in that space, so I'll still argue for the broker over there to make some of my friends watching this happy. But those ones I'm a little bit more okay with it because you're really there. You're going to hopefully have someone even on the online space that's going to protect your home and auto to a good spot. And you're more just from a protection. But as we've talked about on this podcast, there's a lot more insurance as a tool, a lot more insurance to how do I make my investment work better? Should I raise my deductibles and save a little bit more because my P&L or my cash flow needs it, or my debt to, income needs it, or, whatever stuff on the lender side, right? My proceeds need it, whatever things that you would know about. So that's where you really, really do need, I think, is still a broker or an advisor, and they can come in all forms. You can use the online carriers, but still, call a broker up and say, hey, can you, can I pay you $500 or $250 to just advise me? I really love this online carrier, but I want you to check it over for me, right? There's brokers that will do that. It doesn't always have to be someone writing the policy to give you advice or help you out in your insurance journey, right? You can have someone consulting you, helping you. It's definitely, you just want someone in your corner.
Matt, how does the customer get a hold of you?
So the email Matthew 2T's at Nimble, spelling behind NIMBLE, then INS, like for insurance.com. Phone number 312-877-2692. I still got my Chicago number, right? Right. And then the greatest one probably is that if you'll have my name, if you're watching this, I am the only Matthew Sutika living. I'm pretty sure. And if you found another one, please let me know. But I believe I'm the only Matthew Sutika out there in like the whole world. So any of the social media, if you just search by my name, you can see me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter and shoot me a message there as well. And sometimes that's the easiest thing to remember and do.
Hey, I really appreciate you joining the show today. It was great information. I want you to have an epic day.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared and given to you. Epic Spotlight, baby. A new flavor.